Welcome to the TreasureTress Airport. To celebrate our 5th birthday, we're flying out. We have curated some bespoke in-flight entertainment for you to enjoy on your journey. Once you have boarded, please ensure that your seatbelt is fastened, your tray tables are stowed away, and that your window is open. Once we've reached a safe altitude, feel free to put in your headphones, recline your seat, and enjoy. Well, hi ladies.
Hi.
How's everyone doing?
We're good.
How are you? Everyone's looking really nervous right now. Don't be, honestly. We're just having a girl chat. It's honestly fine. So to celebrate TreasureTress's 5th birthday, we are flying out. So this is our in-flight entertainment conversation, titling Destination 30. So as women, generally speaking, the pressure to reach 31 and also your life look a particular way by that time is, it's just really can be really overwhelming. But before we kind of get into all the nitty gritty, I think it'd be really nice to just introduce ourselves so everyone knows who everyone is. So we're all very well acquainted. So in light of flying out, where's the place you really wish you were right now? And just share your name, what you do as a profession as well.
I mean, I would love to be in like Scandinavia because I feel like it looks really pretty at this time of year. And they also have really good heavy metal there. So I've always wanted to like go to some gigs in Scandinavia. And my name's Yasmin and I'm a model and asexuality activist.
Amazing.
I think right now I'd love to be on a beach, anywhere in the world, a hot beach with no children around me, just peace, a cocktail, and peace. Yeah. So my name is Georgina, and I'm a doula, not to be confused with a jeweler. I'm a doula, which is in the birth world.
Oh, I think if I could be anywhere, it would be probably somewhere that I can't go, which is the Maldives. I would love to be on a beach with a cocktail, just my feet in the sand, under the sun, just anywhere but here, basically. I'm Sade. I am a full-time content creator / Instagrammer / blogger, and then I'm also a almost architect.
Almost architect.
Almost architect.
Unpack that.
I'm literally on the final stretch. I'm doing my exams in January.
All virtually, I'm assuming.
Virtually.
Yeah.
So I've got a 24-hour exam at home. It's sad. Yeah, I've got 24 hours to answer like an open book set of questions. And then I can sign off and I can be an architect.
Amazing. Good. Well, it's lovely to see you all, and it's a really nice, diverse group of women. So although we're talking about Destination 30, I know we're all at different stages in terms of how close we are to that age. I think I'll start with you, Georgina.
Yeah.
As the woman who's kind of got the nuclear set up. So married, kids.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about your relationship. How did you get to that point? When did you meet your husband? What's the backstory? I want all the tea.
Okay, so we met in a club.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna lie, I chirped him.
Did you? You shot your shot.
So I saw him walk into the club, and so I've got tattoos. I saw that he had cling film on his arm because he just had a new tattoo. So I was like, that's my like get in, open line. And yeah, the rest is history.
What did you say?
I don't even remember. I don't even want to remember what I said. Something cheesy because I'm the cheesiest person ever. And I just remember we were just like literally dancing the whole night. Snogging in a car park maybe. Like, So that was basically how we met.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have been together for 8 years. We've got 2 kids. Rio is 6 and my little girl Dylan is 2. And we're just literally that happy, bubbly family, I guess. Literally I couldn't do any more to make my family happy and the kids. So yeah, it is good.
How has explain motherhood? What does motherhood look like in your world?
You need to have patience. Patience is like one of the key things for me. I think, well, all parents need to have patience. I think I always kind of put them first, and we're just trying to have fun. Like, it's difficult. There needs to be like discipline, of course, but I feel like I am with my daughter, and Rion, my husband, is with our son. So it's kind of like daddy's girl, daddy's girl, mummy's boy type thing. But they're both good kids. Like, so yeah, it's not too bad. We're just trying to have fun, I think, and just having fun doesn't necessarily mean we have to like go and spend loads of money doing things. Like, we're quite into going to the parks, jumping in puddles. I take my little girl horse riding, like those kind of just outdoorsy fun things.
And how do the kids get on?
Good.
Yeah, for the most part.
No, they do get on. They do get on well. My little girl bullies is a bit strong, but she's the kind of like gruesome, mischievous one, whereas my little boy is more emotional, I guess. But a bit annoying sometimes. Like, come on. But yeah, no, they do go on pretty well.
Yeah, lovely. I love it. When you were okay, let's take it 10 years ago. What did you expect your life to look like at this point? One, does it look like that now? And if it doesn't, how far from that idea is it?
If I'm honest, I've always been a little bit of I kind of have my fingers in a million different pies. I think probably about 10 years ago, I think I had a clothing line, which was doing so well at the time. And I probably did kind of have plans of that being like, I don't know, quite a big brand. But then I kind of always start things, they get to a really good point, and then I start something different, because I'm like, oh, I could also do this and I could do that. And I kind of never really seem to tie anything up and kind of get past that it's doing good stage and then push it to the next level, if you know what I mean. And then I met Rion, and I guess family was the most important thing to me then. So I kind of stopped doing the clothing, because in my kind of head, I needed to have a real job and make sure that I had money definitely coming in at the end of every month, rather than being freelance and, you know, I might sell 50 t-shirts today and none next week, and kind of this, it was too sporadic. So I guess I kind of tried to be more mature, and it probably did hinder me a bit. I don't know if hinder is the right word, but I guess I got stuck in that cycle of working for people, and yeah, just kind of make sure I had that constant money to look after him and blah blah blah. So I don't think, if I'm honest, where I am now is not where I would have seen myself, because I didn't probably envision having the kids and all that kind of stuff so soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't change it. And I guess now, I know it's probably a late question, but now I think, okay, I've actually buckled down. Like, so actually I know what I'm doing. This is my kids are all right. My husband's kind of got my kids as well. Like, he's the money man. Like, cheers, babe. I can kind of just concentrate on doing me a bit more now, which will eventually bring in the money too. So.
Yes, exactly. And actually, picking up off the back of doing me, Yasmin, in terms of doing me, as someone that is aromantic and asexual, first of all, could you explain that? And also, what does doing you and what does relationship and companionship look like in your world?
Well, being asexual means that I don't experience sexual attraction, and being aromantic means I don't experience romantic attraction. So I'm pretty much not going to be having sex. I'm not going to be dating. And so I just have all the other kind of relationships. I hang out with my family, and I have friends who I haven't really seen this year, but that was kind of beyond my control. And yeah, and I'll probably branch out my family and get a pug at some point. Have some like fur children, and then later on maybe I'll find some way to have an actual hairless baby. Well, not totally hairless, you know what I mean. And yeah, so for me, I just invest in all the other kind of relationships that just don't involve sex or dating, really.
I love it. And in light of that, when did you realize you didn't feel any kind of sexual or romantic attraction?
Around the same time as everyone else seemed to realize that they did. So like early puberty, really, when everyone just kind of like a switch seemed to flick in everybody's heads, and suddenly like kids didn't just want to like play together or play with their Legos. They wanted to be like dating, or they fancied each other or whatever. And then, you know, for your teenage years, it kind of becomes more obvious that I wasn't feeling the same things as other people were feeling. So yeah, I just kind of realized it in terms of I wasn't having the same moments that everybody else was having. And
you have an accent, I must pick that up. Where are you originally from?
Oh, I'm from Reading. I just watched a lot of Nickelodeon as a kid. Like, honestly.
Wait a minute.
I'm not even kidding. I watched a lot of Rugrats.
Hold on. You're from The UK,
Yeah.
as in from yay high to present
Yeah, I
day.
was born in Reading, yeah.
No, does anyone, am I the only one that's feeling
No,
like what's happening?
this happens like all the time. And then people are like, you're seriously just from Berkshire.
You sound
your
like you're
parents are
from like California.
Yeah.
I know, my parents are from Reading, like everything. It's just, yeah. But I used to watch like loads of Nickelodeon, but also loads of Only Fools and Horses. So it could have gone either way. But it didn't go Cockney. It went really like Tommy Pickles. And now I just kind of sound like this forever. And now it just causes confusion all the time.
Oh my gosh, do you know how funny that is? Because the next thing I was going to ask you is how life has looked in terms of your transition to the UK, but you have not had one. You've lived it your whole life.
Literally, I've lived in the same place in Reading my entire life. I'm like as Reading as you can get. And I just don't sound like I come from anywhere near there. So it's like...
That is actually probably the pinnacle of this conversation. I cannot believe that I've discovered this. That is crazy. Sade, as well. I'm definitely coming back to this because this is so interesting.
This is the part where you say you're Australian.
Yeah.
Sadly, like mine is, I was born here. But I'm Nigerian, but yeah, born here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, that feeds really well into my next question. You wrote a really beautiful article on your blog, In Love in Your Late 20s.
Yes.
Could you talk first of all a little bit about the article and then speak to how your cultural influences, because I have a lot of Nigerian, right?
Yeah.
I have a lot of Nigerian friends and I understand that there can be some really intense pressures around relationships. So yeah, a little bit about the article and then how your culture has informed your decisions.
So I think growing up, I've always been like, I don't know whether it was like Disney or like when you see like the prince kisses the princess and she comes to life or whatever, but I've always been like a very romantic person. So like love for me has always been something that I've always wanted, but I'm very kind of hyper aware that in the 21st century, it looks a lot different to what it was, I don't know, every 100 years or so, like what my parents and their generation saw as love is quite different to what we kind of see as love and relationships. Everything is quite different. So as I've kind of grown up and I've gone through my own kind of tumultuous relationships and I've kind of found myself, I kind of got to like a stage where I think with my last relationship, I was just like, do you know what? I'm actually okay being single. And that was, I think like 4 years ago. And before that, I was single for like 4 years before that. So I think I kind of just became really, I mean, not obsessed, but really kind of okay with being single. And as you mentioned, also being Nigerian and in our culture, it's very much like when you get to a certain age, it's usually like 25, your parents are kind of like, they go from you're not allowed to date, you have to be single, you can only study, blah, 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 blah. As soon as you finish university, they're kind of like, okay, now you can go out and find a husband. And then we're kind of just like, oh, like you feel so lost because you've been like almost sheltered your whole life and then your parents are like, right, find someone. And for a lot of my friends that are Nigerian and family, we all just realized that we're all just single. I don't know what it is, like all of us, like Black women, we're all like thriving in everything else, but we're all just very single. And I think, especially for like where you've got like this kind of cultural pressure, I think it's really important to remind women that it's okay to be single. Like there's no rush. Like I feel like you've got like the TV is telling you like, I don't know, your biological clock is ticking, and then your family telling you you're getting too old and you should settle down. But I think for me, the saddest thing would be to kind of settle for something that it's just unfair to both people. I would much rather be single, and I kind of like yourself, I'm happy to kind of settle down, get a house like on my own, get my third baby. In the future, if I don't find anyone, I will happily adopt or like whatever. I think it's okay to kind of accept that. If it happens and I do find someone, that's also great. But I think I am very much a proponent of just, you won't die, basically, if you're single.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's a really important point to make in that you just won't die.
Yeah, it's okay.
By being single, and it's okay to have that preference, and there isn't anything wrong with you. There isn't anything that you're lacking as a result of that. And I guess this is kind of an open question to everyone. In terms of any pressure to either be a certain way or be in a relationship, where did that come from for you guys? And how have you been able to combat that?
I mean, I've always been like innately a nonconformist for some reason. So for me, I never really tried to do what people told me to do. In fact, I tended to kind of do the opposite. So there were all kinds of pressures of people telling me.
I just can't even believe that you're not.
I know. It does cause confusion like all the time. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't even have the accent I'm supposed to have at this point.
There we go.
Like everything people kind of expected me to do, I never really did it. So for me, I never really cared about like the pressure to like, and to be honest, my mom didn't really care very much. Like my immediate family didn't really care. I also think it's kind of like that thing, kind of like what you were describing of how people they don't want their daughters to be dating that much. You don't want your daughters to be like having a bunch of sex or like bringing all kinds of boys home. So I think a lot of people just perceived me as being well behaved, and so it wasn't something that they were trying to like push onto me until as I got older. It's kind of like, okay, it's a bit weird now, but yeah. So I mean, I've never really like felt that much pressure to behave in a particular way, really. So it wasn't too difficult for me.
I think I've always kind of been a person that wants to, whether it's my friends, it's not always kind of been men, but I've always wanted to make people happy. So I don't know if it kind of stems from that. My mum and dad were together and quite happy for the majority of my childhood. And then my dad left and moved to Spain. So, but yeah, he's not around anymore. But I don't know whether after that it was kind of like I wanted to maybe prove it to, I haven't actually ever thought about this before, but I don't know if it's I wanted to prove that I could kind of have my kind of family and not run away from it. I don't know if that makes much sense, but yeah, I have always wanted to kind of like make people happy and kind of be a good companion to them, as I say, whether it is friendships or in relationships. I think I kind of just always had that in me from young, and now it's kind of like I've kind of got that, so I'm holding on to it extra tight, if that makes sense.
Is there a fear that you might lose it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But also if I do lose it, I've got this. Like I'm not kind of like dependent on I need to have that, and if I don't have that, then I don't have anything. It's just that as a choice, I would prefer to have that, and kind of together we make it work.
I think in light of that, I was kind of wanting to see whether there was this feeling that, you know, your family and just all of these external things are what we define ourselves by. And I think a lot of what Sade said really reigns true in that actually understanding who you are, what your kind of like wholesome values are, and allowing that to be the driving force in all situations is kind of what I'm hearing from everyone in different ways. In terms of just society's views of Black women in relationships, how has that projected into your lives, if it has? So I guess for me, when I look at Black female relationships, it always seems to be attributed to struggle. And it's struggle for anything, like struggle for a good man, just struggle for a good looking man.
It is so tiring.
Like just struggle love. Has that been, I guess for you, Sade, I think this question has that been your experience, and how have you combated that?
Yeah, do you know what? I think like as I was growing up, and I was thinking about it the other day, and the reason why I guess I love like Instagram and like just how like visual everything is nowadays. But I feel like when I was growing up, like on TV, like growing up in the UK, I mean, we had like, I think it was Trouble, where you'd watch things like My Wife and Kids. And I feel like that was when, like as a teenager, in my formative years, I was like, oh my God, Black love, like this is it. And then I don't know what happened, where it all kind of just disappeared. And then you didn't see it anymore. And like, it kind of felt like on TV, there was like kind of every other there was like every other kind of like interracial relationships, or like just white relationships, but it felt like Black women were never there. So I kind of like, I don't know, after you kind of internalize it, and it kind of then makes you feel like maybe you're less than. So I think like definitely very earlier on in my kind of like not proper relationships, but like silly relationships, like at uni, I think I definitely probably accepted a lot more rubbish than I should have, because I was just like, well, I don't see this type of love like everywhere. I mean, like my parents have it, and like the older aunties and stuff had it, but I didn't really see it when I was like with like people that I knew or on TV. So I was just like, maybe this is what it is. And it was like kind of struggle love. And then like on TV, as you mentioned, it kind of feels like it's like this kind of like, I don't know, like you have to fight for this love, or someone is cheating, or it's not like a normal relationship. I'm like, can I not just have like the normal relationship where we, I don't know, eat noodles at 3 a.m. together and like cuddle our dog? And I think for me, I'm just like, I want that, and I'm like, that is something that I can have. Whether that is like dependent, like I don't know where my potential partner is going to be from. My parents are hoping Nigeria, but I'm just like, I got, you know, when you get to the stage, you're just like, I would rather just wait it out. If I do get like this proper love, like I want to be loved like how I deserve to be loved. Like it doesn't make sense for me to struggle for love, and I just refuse to do it. So I'm very much like, I would rather just bask in singleness. And like as you mentioned, like going out with my friends, like because most of us are single, it works out quite well. So we're like each other's boyfriends. But I'm just like, yeah, this. I don't know whether it's like because we don't see like Black women being loved the way they deserve to be. That yeah, people like Black women especially, we kind of, I feel like we take a lot more than we should in terms of like bad relationships, or like just bad things, even like just like bad jobs as well. Like just in general, I feel like sometimes we feel like we should be grateful for everything, and it's because the world tells us that we're not like worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Changing the direction of the conversation a little bit, Yasmin, when the switch turned or didn't turn, whichever way we're looking at, which switch goes which way, was there a conversation with your parents or friends around how you felt? If there was, how did that go? And in terms of if anybody else feels this feeling, what would you advise they do?
Well, I mean, at the time, I mean, I was like 10, so no one was really concerned about whether or not I was kind of interested in that kind of stuff at that time. I mean, I always say like, for like my mom, like I've been the same way my entire life, so it wasn't anything notable. I think it would have been weirder if I came home and said, "Hey mom, this is my boyfriend." She'd have been like, "What? Yeah, okay." Like I feel like that would have been weirder at that point, because like I've always been exactly the same, and I've like never really tried to be anything else, or I never said to my mom like, "Oh, by the way, you know I'm straight, right?" Or, "You know I'm gay, right?" Like that. I just never really said anything, so we just kind of were used to just me not really doing anything. So I never really had that conversation with her. My dad noticed more, I guess, when I kind of got to being like a teenager, and then it was kind of like, okay, like while I don't want you to be sexually attracted to anyone, it's kind of weird that you're not sexually attracted to anyone. I don't want you to have a boyfriend, but shouldn't you want to have one? So I think he found it weirder, and I don't think he ever really believed me when I tried to say that I'm asexual and that's what this is. But I mean, and I guess the other kids in my school noticed. They kind of cared about it more than I did. I didn't really care. But other people were just trying to like work me out and be like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what about this?" Or like just trying to like test me, or just trying to like work out like what my boundaries are, or how I'd react to different things. So I think other people were trying to work it out a lot more than I was. So then we kind of had to have conversations about it, but I didn't really feel the need to have those conversations. I was just doing my own thing. But in terms of what I would say to people that were kind of going through the same thing, I don't know, just kind of just trust in your own instincts and don't try to be something that you're not, and just wait it out, really. Because after a while, once I left secondary school and then college and then uni, people kind of stopped bothering me, because I just stopped interacting with annoying people, because I didn't have to.
That's the key. That is the key. Take yourself away from annoying people. It's as simple as that.
It's harder to do when you're in school and you have to be with them like 5 days a week. But once I kind of got out of that, I was like, oh, cool, life is just so much easier when I can choose my company. So just kind of wait for that phase of life to finish if you can.
For sure. And in terms of company and community, what would you like the world to know a little bit more about the aromantic and asexual community?
That we're just normal people, really. And that it's not like some kind of affliction. That it's like, oh, like sometimes people kind of like are very sympathetic approach. They're like, oh, that's so sad. Oh, you're gonna be so lonely. Oh, you must feel like you're like missing out on this or this. It's like, well, to be honest, your relationship sucks. I don't think I'm missing anything. And I mean, like, I don't feel like I'm actually missing that much, like observing like things other people are going through. Like, there are so many other aspects of life you could be like focusing on and getting the same kind of enjoyment out of. So no, I'm not like asexual and aromantic people aren't like afflicted with this tragic loss. It's not like you're like blind or deaf or something, and you're just like missing a huge part of something. It's like, it's something you can easily live a very normal, happy, fulfilling life with. And it's just like having like a different perspective of sexuality or a different perspective of relationships rather than missing a whole type of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Really interesting. And in terms of Georgina, or anyone really, in terms of how your, actually more specifically you, how has your perception and perspective on being a woman changed since becoming a mother? And how do you first define yourself? Are you mum, wife, doula? Are you doula, mum, wife? Are you woman, wife, doula, mum? And what made you choose whichever order you kind of...
Okay, so I think I'm mum always first. And I probably do put myself bottom of the pile, which I'm working at changing. So it probably is mum, wife, doula, and then I kind of like somehow merge into doula and underneath perhaps. But I think right now, I know that of course my family are always going to be of highest importance to me. So that the kids and we are kind of wrapped into one as family is always going to probably be first. But I'm also learning that in order for that to kind of to flourish, I guess, I need to also be my best self. So yeah, at the minute, especially kind of if we compare this lockdown to last lockdown, last lockdown I was like, okay, I need to make sure the kids have got something to do every day, Easter egg hunt's done, Whereas this time, Rio's still at school, and it's me, like Rion's at work. It's kind of nothing really much has changed for us. Besides now it's like, actually this is my time to exercise, which I've never done in my whole 30 years of life. Never exercised, like ever. Can't even do a burpee.
I hate them.
What's a burpee?
When you jump up in the air and then as you land, you go into a plank.
Oh, I'm glad that you couldn't do that too.
No, I hadn't heard of that before. I've just started working out, but I'm going to try that tonight now. Because I've never heard of that before.
Please don't be able to do it. So I'm literally working on myself, and even talking of the exercising, it's just made my mind, I have more energy, like I'm eating better, my mind is better, and therefore going back to patience, which is like the top thing you need to have as a mum, it's better because I just have more energy, and the children are not annoying me all the time because I'm like, yeah, let's jump around together, like all that kind of stuff. What was the first question you asked me about motherhood?
How's it changed you?
Yeah, it has changed me. I guess because of that, because literally it's kind of like learning to put other people, even though I guess naturally that has always been what I've been like, to put other people above me, I guess, which I don't know whether that's a good or a bad trait. It can kind of probably be seen both ways. For my family, I guess it's a good thing that they are kind of on pedestals to me. I'm like, I need to make sure that you guys are surviving. But it has changed me because I don't know, I guess it's kind of taught me to actually go deeper into who am I and what values I want for my children and kind of for my family and that kind of thing. Even going back to, Black women, like, yeah, we are amazing, and I can hold down a family, and my husband isn't going to be a cheater and a this, and like all the kind of, I think as Black women we get quite a lot of stigma, but men will probably like get so much as well. Kind of they don't really necessarily get. If I go back to my grandma, all of my mum and all of her brothers and sisters all date white men or women. Like there's no in my family like Black woman with Black guy or whatever, that kind of thing. So even like her kind of always kind of said to like kind of put into us like, be wary guys, like Black guys are ignorant or they cheat and stuff, and it's kind of like trying to unpick that and unpick it from myself as well, kind of together. So I think just kind of going into that journey of like who am I has kind of, motherhood has made me do that, because kind of made me stop and check myself a little bit, which has really been good.
I think what I'm hearing you say is it's really about self-love, and
100%.
like understanding what that is for each person, and for you, all of you, what does self-love look like?
Well, I'm going to say that also like reflects back into my job. So a doula, which is a very nurturing job, self-love and self-care is like one of the key kind of components in that. So I think even kind of going back to my motherhood thing, my job is also kind of that kind of nurturing, I guess, is like a main kind of part of who I am. And yeah, it's kind of really kind of getting people to take kind of self-care, which is quite often last on the list. Like, especially as a mum, it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to book a massage, but when am I going to have time to do that? Because I don't have time to even have a bath on my own with someone knocking on the door kind of thing. But for me, I guess I've just finished a book. That was so good. Like the feeling after finishing a book, which sounds so silly. I was like, yes, I finished the first book in ages. You know, like painting my nails. I had to do it in the car on the way here. Like literally, but like sitting at home, having an evening, just painting my nails and putting a face mask on. Like the simplest, easiest tasks, especially as a mom, it's so hard to do those things. Going for a walk on your own. Like I saw on Instagram, there was a post that said like, going to the supermarket on your own is not giving yourself a break, because as a mom, you're like, yes, I don't have someone asking for pom bears and this and that and that. And literally just walking around an empty supermarket, even though you got to wear a mask in a minute, it's just like heaven. Like that is literally your break.
My godson's mum said the same thing to me the other day. Like literally, when she has to pop out to the shop, she's like, brilliant.
So especially if they got clothes in there as well, it's like, oh yes. It's like going to Selfridges for the day.
Yeah. And little things like if you forget something and everyone's with you and everyone's home and they've got undressed and your husband's not there, everyone has to get dressed again.
Yeah, someone does poo in their nappy, so annoying.
Yeah, so it's little things, absolutely. Yasmin, what about you? Self-care, what does it look like for you?
I mean, I have a lot of free time, so I feel like I'm a I mean, for me, aside, like I'm as a freelancer, I kind of do the work I want to do. My mom technically still pays the bills, so I don't really worry about that. So I feel like I'm a good, like, so I feel like self-care wise, I think I'm pretty good. I mean, for me, I just like to, I mean, I like being busy though. So like, I actually find not having much to do very annoying. So and then I just tend to like, if I do anything, I'll like excessively do it. So for me, it's kind of like, just like, I just try to like learn to just kind of, I try to appreciate things when I've done them, because I tend to be the kind of person, like I'll do something really cool and then I'll be over it like 5 minutes later. Then I'll be like, God, I've done nothing. And I'll be like, well, I literally just did a thing just then, but I'll just be over it in like 5 minutes. So I'm trying to like remind myself to like, it's kind of just like appreciate stuff that like has happened instead of just being like over it very quickly.
What's something really exciting that has happened?
I mean, I was in Teen Vogue last month.
That's amazing.
And then like, and again, as soon as I do it, I'm like, cool, done it. What have I done? And then I'm like, and I'm literally over it like so fast. I'm like, well, what am I going to do next month? And I'm just like, I'll just totally forget about all the stuff I've already done. Instead of being like, hey, I just did something really cool that I like never thought I'd be able to do. I'm just like super over it. And I'm like, well, what about the next thing? What if I have nothing to do next month? I suck. So I'm trying to like appreciate things that I've like already done, and then just like not just procrastinate playing Sims 4 all the time, which I find very relaxing, but just to like be active, but then not feel bad about kind of
Not being active.
Yeah, and then being able to appreciate stuff that I've actually been able to achieve instead of just like being over it and feeling like I have to be doing something like all the time, otherwise I've achieved nothing.
That's really, really important to like, that's something that I like firmly believe in, that like being present and appreciating the moment, and because that is all that's guaranteed. So Teen Vogue is amazing. Like that is absolutely amazing. Sade, self-love for you?
Self-love and self-care for me is a really weird one, because I'm the oldest of, it's me and my sister, and I've got like immigrant parents, and so I was always kind of like, I've got like a very type A personality where I'm like, I feel like the whole world rests on my shoulder. So I'm like, I have to do this, I have to organize this, I have to do this. And I think for me, what I've been doing is I've been learning to put in really like strict boundaries. And that has been kind of like paramount to me, kind of managing like my own mental health, emotional health, just managing myself in general. Because I have a tendency, if someone asks me, can you do this or can you jump? I'll be like, how high? What do you need me to do? I'll drop everything and do it for you now. On top of my own kind of like very heavy kind of like, I work full time. I kind of like manage, I'm like the only woman that manages a specific team, plus I'm the only like a black woman that does it. So that I feel like there's that pressure. And then I also run my Instagram and my blog, and I do that kind of full time as well. So I, like that is also another money maker. And then I'm also at uni at the same time as well. So I've got a really bad tendency of kind of doing everything and then having a breakdown like every like month or so. I'll have a full breakdown, and I've just been like, you know what, I'm just gonna have to put really firm boundaries and be like, this is what I can do. So for work, I'm like, guys, I'm not responding to Slack after 6 o'clock. I'm not responding before this time. You have me for these times. You won't die. You're not like, I feel like I treat like my like colleagues like children, like my little babies. I'm like, I'll help you with everything. But I'm like, no, you have to do it. And then with my Instagram stuff, like for example with PRs and stuff where they're kind of like pushing back on times, I've just been like, look, I can only work on the weekends. I work full time. With uni work, that's kind of all in my own time, so I do that. But I've just been really strict with boundaries. When people are like, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? I'm like, I can, but it has to be on my time. So I guess for me with self-love, it is respecting myself and respecting and loving myself enough to kind of know where my boundaries are and being able to say no with love, and kind of, I have to kind of take care of myself. I think, again, it's another thing that Black women, we're just like, yeah, I'll do everything for everyone. I'll like spread myself completely thin, and then you just lose it. And then like, who can you help if your cup is half, if you don't have anything to pour out?
Compliments cup.
Exactly, yeah.
But don't you think like self-care and self-love in general, like even you were just saying Sims 4, that's your self-care.
Absolutely.
Like, you shouldn't feel bad for doing that.
Yeah.
And like, I think we always kind of like, even I said earlier, massage, like we always have to kind of think of what's a big thing that we can do to have, and if it's sitting watching a film on a Sunday all afternoon or watching black and white films, like, you know, all day, that kind of resets you for the week. Like even having a hot bath with the lights off and candles, self-care. Do you know what I mean? Like we always overthink like, what can we do to make sure? But everyone's could literally be like a walk.
Yeah,
Like,
so small.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine being like that level of busy. Like when I was at uni, my mom was like, "Don't even think about getting a job at the same time," because I know that I've like such a bad attention span. I can't do more than I would not be able to like have a job and then do the social media stuff and like do like I could not. Like,
I think someone actually, my manager actually asked me today as I was leaving. She said, "How do you do all this stuff?" And I was like, "Emma, I literally have a mental breakdown at least once a month." And she was like, do you know what? It's fair enough. I was like, it's probably not healthy, but I'm definitely like, this isn't like a long-term thing. It's very much like I'm kind of like working very hard because I'm like, I want like.
You're gonna retire at 40.
I wish. I literally. I hope so. I'm literally doing all this because I'm like, again, this whole like before 30 thing. I'm like, I really want to buy a flat before 30. I'm 30 next year, September. So I'm kind of like, okay, in my 30th year. So before I'm 31, basically, I really want to like have my own flat and like my own like little dog or something, like just like my own little like, I want to start my own, not my own family, but my own like, I don't know, my own like safe space. That is like my goal for 30, which is why I'm working myself to death now, so that I'm hopefully when I'm like next year, I can just relax with my dog.
Proud of you. That's really good.
Thanks.
Very good.
Ladies, let's talk professional for a second. So everyone kind of knows what everyone does. So we'll start with you, Sade. Day to day, what does your life look like?
A little bit too busy. I guess like on a weekday, I work as like a senior design lead at an architecture company. So my role has changed quite a bit over the years where I don't do as much drafting. So essentially I'm managing like a team of like drafters and other people. So it's mostly client facing, so on the phone to clients. We're kind of like a bit of an online company as well. Occasionally we see people like in real life, but with COVID, everything's online. So that works out quite well. So I'm on the phone like 90% of the time, and then I'm checking people's work, making sure it works. Basically, it's not going to fall down.
And remind us what type of architect?
Residential.
Okay.
Residential. So basically talking to people all day about their houses, what they want, what they need, like what their design aspirations are, whether it's feasible, and kind of talking them through the design and planning process and all the structural kind of like the boring bits basically. So most of my day is kind of like being on the phone and then checking people's drawings, and then in a million meetings on Zoom and Google videos and whatever. And then as soon as I clock out from my full-time job, then depending on what day it is, it's either I'm logging on to uni for lectures, or I'm emailing emailing management back on what brands I'm accepting. If I've got like, I don't know, content creation to kind of finish off, like videos to edit, images to edit, captions to put together, or just general stuff, maybe a blog post or something. So my days are kind of quite long.
What does your dream house look like?
Oh my gosh, if I could like a proper dream, like if I'm going for a realistic like dream, it would honestly be to own like one of the really nice Victorian like townhouses in like Hampstead. Actually, yeah, that would be it. But unfortunately, I don't have like £5 million. So
One day.
Just please God. Yeah, that would honestly be my dream. They're so beautiful, like with the beautiful high ceilings and the sash windows. They're so just homely and lovely. That is my dream. But my realistic dream is honestly just at this point, with the way London is, I wouldn't mind like a 2-bedroom flat anywhere. Like anywhere within zone 1 to 6, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in terms of blog, can you talk to us a little bit about that? Where did In My Sunday Best come from?
So that started, I think it was 11 years ago now, when I was, so just before uni. So I kind of started it, and then when I got to uni, I kind of redid it a little bit, and it was meant to be like an art blog, because I studied architecture, but I wanted to study fine art. But I couldn't study fine art because my parents refused to. They were just like, we're not supporting your dream of being an artist. So I was like, I'll do architecture instead, because I thought it would be arty. It's really not. That was a big mistake. So I didn't really have. I went from London to Lincoln, which is in the East Midlands, which is very different. Like, I was London born and bred, so I've moved to a place where there's just no black people. And I was just like, well, where am I? It was just, I felt very like a fish out of water, and I felt very lonely. So I started my blog as kind of like I don't know, like almost like an online diary. So it started off like that. It was just like kind of pictures, art, all of the kind of stuff I got up to day to day. It was kind of very heartfelt, very personal. And then I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then eventually brands started reaching out, and I didn't realize like this could be a thing, like brands would work with you. And then it became more of like a concentrated, like, I don't know, kind of like it's still like an online diary, but it's kind of really focused on like kind of heartfelt writing, really specific posts on like getting older as a black woman, being a black woman in the UK, love, I guess like just kind of everything that you go through as a woman.
I love it. And what's been some of your highlights in that journey so far?
Honestly, if I'm being very honest, probably the biggest highlight is that realizing that you can get paid quite a lot for doing something what you think is quite simple. It's really interesting that other people see it as like something that's so like beautiful or interesting, and that they really want to either read it or they really want you to create content. It's quite nice for something that you kind of just, I don't know, do on a whim, for you to get paid for it, or for people to read it, or for people to give feedback. Or like I had an email not too long ago from someone who was like, hey, like I read your post, like I think it was like 7 years ago, one of my like really old posts on like love, when I think I was in like a really horrible relationship, and I was like talking about how like I just felt like so horrible about myself, and she was like, I read the new one, and she was like, it's really nice to go back and read both of them and see how much you've grown. And I was like, oh, yeah. So that was really nice.
Yeah, I love that. Georgina, doula. What is a doula?
So a doula is a physical, kind of emotional and informational support for new parents. So during pregnancy, during the birth, and postnatally, so after you've given birth as well. So I guess my main job as a doula is to kind of, I can't empower people. It's not possible to empower someone, but to give you the tools and the information to empower yourself to have kind of a positive birth, kind of, and the confidence to think, yeah, I can do this, like after you've given birth as well. So I guess I kind of say I hold people that need to be held. Kind of, I'm just a real kind of big source of support.
I actually didn't know that was as simple as the definition was.
Yeah,
I thought there was much more to it.
Yeah, that's literally what our job is. Like, of course, there is like there's loads more that we do. Like there are things that we don't do. We're not we can't kind of coerce you into kind of saying, I don't think you should have a water birth, for example. You can't do that. You can't give any advice. So it could be, we can kind of give you information to be like, okay, let's look at the positives and the negatives of this situation, and then you make up your minds. But we can't, it couldn't be that you're like, oh, so I don't know, for example, what bottle should I buy, or should I breastfeed or not? And I can't say to you, well, you know, I would if I was you. Like, no advice, nothing medical. So for example, I don't know, if you just given birth and you were like, oh, do you mind just looking at my stitches? Because I don't know if I'm healing correctly. Nope, like I don't take off your clothes. That's not for me. That's what the midwife's job is. And you kind of just signpost people. Because I'm not medically trained, I can say no, but you could ask your health visitor or your midwife, or go to this charity, ask this breastfeeding specialist. So yeah, signposting is quite a big kind of part of my job too.
Yeah. And what drew you to being a doula?
So basically, one of my friends was pregnant and giving birth actually, and her partner called me. So I kind of quite wanted to concentrate my doula stuff on not just the birthing person, but their partner too, whether it's the husband, grandma, like whoever the other person is. Basically, so her boyfriend called me at the time and said, look, she's in labour, I'm panicking, I don't know what to do. Like I think he was quite naive, if I'm honest. So like he kind of thought maybe you're just going to go into hospital. And you know, Bob's your uncle. Like, so he was kind of like, she's panicking, I don't know what to do. He was panicking, and I wasn't there, but over the phone I kind of said to him, right, stop, like restart this whole thing. Go in, you two are going to have a baby at the end of this, like get your stuff together. Like you also need to be a big support for her. Yeah. And it kind of like just flipped their birthing experience on its head. Like I think he just kind of needs someone to be like, stop, like, you know. And kind of after that, then she kind of was breastfeeding. And if I'm honest, I wasn't a doula then, so I was probably giving her advice. And it's very easy because I've had kids to be like, oh, well, this worked for me. Which now, as my job, I can't do that. But I was kind of quite a big support for her. And afterwards, I was like, oh, I really enjoyed doing that. And it was something that came naturally to me. Like I didn't kind of have to say, oh, I don't know what to do. Like it was just like, okay, this is what you need to do. Like kind of very, I don't know what the word is, kind of just quite relaxed in the situation. Like I wasn't panicked at all and kind of like getting flustered with him. So I think kind of that was the main thing. And I was like, oh, I didn't know what doula was, but I was like, whatever I just did there, I want to do that. And then I found out what a doula was. And if I'm honest, even now, majority of people don't know what it is. Like one of my friends said, oh, is that when you breastfeed someone else's baby? And like, no. And she's a mom, like she had 3 children, but at this point, so, you know, it's not just people that haven't had children. Quite a lot of people don't know what a doula is. So anyway, I found out, oh, cool, a doula. Then I looked into where I could study to become this person. And it was all kind of like caravans in Somerset, like very hippie, tree hugging, hippie dippy, like spiritual. And I was like, that's not me. And also I didn't want to go like out into the sticks. Like I'd say mum life, I ain't got time for that. So literally I managed to find one which was in Clapham. I worked in Clapham at the time. So I was like, oh yeah, perfect. And just kind of the ball kind of started rolling from then.
Yeah. And Yasmin, what does your life look like day to day?
I mean, it kind of depends on the day.
Okay.
Like
Monday.
I'll wake up at 3 p.m. and I mean, if it's a day where I actually have something to do, because when you're freelance, you might have like a week where you're like just planning stuff to do, and the next week you'll do everything, and then you'll do nothing for like the week after that. So I don't know. Usually I'll be like answering emails, planning stuff. I usually end up working with different like companies or different brands or different businesses, and I do like seminars and like consulting stuff and like that whole diversity and inclusion stuff. So I do a lot of like Zoom seminars and those kind of things, and I get asked to be on podcasts a lot, so I do a lot of podcasts, and then I write articles myself for different publications, and I've just joined this research board at the University of California, so I'm doing CITI training. Amazing. So I can like work specifically like with the human subjects of the research, because my master's was in crime science and my bachelor's was in sociology, so I did like social science before this, so it was kind of a cool way to blend my activism and stuff together. So I do that at nighttime when I'm done playing Sims, or I'll just like I'll have like my like training stuff there, and I'll have like the Sims there, and I'll be like
going between the two,
literally. And yeah, and then probably like when my mom's finished work, I'll be like, can you be my photographer for a bit so I can get some social media content? Because like in lockdown, I can't like actually do proper shoots. Yeah. But I still have like brands will have send me like a bunch of stuff to do. So I've trained my mom to be my photographer, and
How's she doing?
She's doing good.
Good.
I do the editing, she takes the pictures.
There we go.
We use like every corner of the house, every corner of the neighborhood. Fortunately, I live in a place where it's like a good combination between like old and like modern, so I can find like nature, I could find like shiny buildings like within 5 minutes of each other. So yeah, I just kind of, but yeah, it kind of depends on the day, really.
What type of articles are you writing, and what kind of information are you sharing about asexual and aromantic communities?
Yeah, I mean, well, usually it's kind of whatever they tell me to, but it's usually about asexuality or aromanticism, or sometimes people tend to ask me to write exactly the same stuff over and over again, just like different platforms. Like, well, our audience hasn't read it, even if you have said it before. So I'll be like, okay, I have already done this. Okay, I can give you like the asexuality 101, or I could give you like the interview, or I'll say exactly what I said in the last interview. That's fine. So yeah, there's that kind of, I usually write that kind of stuff, or as a series I write for a site called Queer Fashion, where I do get to choose what I write, and I'm kind of like, it's called This Is What Asexual Looks Like, where I'm like interviewing different asexual people about like their expression and their fashion and all that kind of stuff. So in that case, I do get to choose. But yeah, usually it's just kind of whatever is commissioned, and it's usually the same kind of thing.
What do you wish people were asking you?
I mean, well, it's usually just like, you know, like, what is it, or how do you know you are, or what are misconceptions? What is it actually? Just that kind of stuff. But yeah, although sometimes I do kind of like, they do kind of ask about like my story, so I kind of get to write about that. But you can only talk about yourself so much. It's like, I have said this before, but
what do you want to be talking about?
I mean, I do like talking about it. I mean, that's kind of like, it's when you're an activist, that's kind of like the job. You're raising awareness for something. So you do share your own story, and you do talk about the community, and you talk about stuff that impacts us and all that kind of stuff. So you're answering this and saying the same stuff over and over again. It's kind of part of the job. It is fun when it kind of, like this interview, where it kind of delves out of just the 101 stuff, and you kind of just get to mention other things. Like that's quite fun.
Oh, great.
Because before I did this kind of stuff, I always thought I was always like, well, I don't really need to talk about being asexual, because who's going to care about what I'm not doing? And it turned out that everybody cared about what I'm not doing. And then like all the stuff that I thought people want me to talk about was like, they didn't actually like, like any of my other interests, or like there's degrees I took the time to get, never come up. The master's, nothing. Yeah. So
literally, that feels like the way of the world. You go to uni, you do all of this work, and then no one ever asks you about it ever again.
I know. I just use it as just like a fun like icebreaker into things. Like, by the way, I went to UCL. I got this thing. Just when they're like, okay, like that's kind of all I use it for. But I'm kind of getting to. I feel like it is kind of sometimes helpful though, because when I'm like talking to like businesses, or I'm doing seminars at places, like I did some stuff last month for like the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office and Morgan Stanley and Stonewall and all those kind of places, and I'm thinking, they're probably thinking, why have we got this random Instagram model talking to us about stuff? Like, who is she? Why do we care? Like, what is she even educated? Like, what are we talking about? So I do like to like throw that in there. So it's like, I do more than just take lingerie shots for Instagram. Like,
there is more strings to my bow, guys.
Yeah, so I find it can be helpful to just kind of like, it's like to name drop, so people know that like I have a bit more going on than just taking pictures for Instagram.
For sure. And you talked about impact in terms of the asexual and aromantic community, but just taking it back to relationships, who do you guys think has had the biggest impact on how you see relationships in your life?
Probably my parents, I would have thought, because it kind of like was quite in childhood I remember that we was kind of very close, and then it just kind of, for me, I guess as a child, my mum and dad had their issues, whatever, but then it's kind of like one day it just changed. So I guess that's kind of been the closest to me, like relationship, I guess, to see. Yeah, I guess it's that.
Yeah, I would say probably the same actually. I think my parents have been together. I think my mum was like, actually no, they were together for like way longer than they would like to let on, because I know that I think my mum met my dad because she sneaked out to a party that she wasn't supposed to be at.
Rebel.
Just like she sneaked out. She sneaked out, and that's how she met my dad. And I think my dad was like, I'm gonna marry you, and she was kind of like, she was very much like no, because I think like back in the day he was meant to be like a bad boy, which is really ironic because he's now just very, very soft, and he's in a house full of women, so he has no choice to. But I think, yeah, my parents have kind of like, they've been together for however long and they're still together. They fight like cat and dog, more so like my mum fights my dad, like typical loud Nigerian woman. But like they still like love each other and they're still going, God willing, and it will be like that till the end of their days. And I think just seeing that, and also seeing like a lot of like Black women in normal relationships, like watching TV. Like I remember I wasn't supposed to watch it when I was younger, but like Girlfriends, like I mean they did have their weird up and down relationships, but that was like a really nice show, and I know it's come back now. I think it's coming to Netflix at some point, but just being able to kind of see like someone that looks like me on TV in a normal kind of happy relationship as well, kind of normalizes it and makes you feel like, oh, actually that's something that I can like look forward to. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would probably say my mom, but I think I never really saw many relationships when I was younger, and while I don't think that made me aromantic, I think it probably had something to do with why like it was never something that I put much emphasis on, or I never like felt like, oh well, because I'm aromantic, like oh I need to be doing this or that because that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you like live your life. Because my parents broke up when I was like a baby, so I never really saw them together, and then I didn't really have many like. I mean, my mom had friends who were in couples, but they weren't coupley. Like I didn't see them like
PDA, loads of
like they was like kind of people like married, but they're not like. But they like they didn't like they sat in different rooms in the house usually. So it's kind of like I didn't really see anyone being particularly like that coupley. I mean, my dad had a girlfriend, but even then they weren't particularly that coupley. So it was never really something that I placed much emphasis on. But I don't know. So I don't really see that many relationships. But then I think that's kind of helpful because I know I've always seen my mom be able to kind of function independently, and I'm glad she's not one of those people that hated being single or felt like she always needed to have a boyfriend or was always like looking for a relationship or recovering from a relationship or something like that. It was never something that had a lot of like importance. So I guess in that sense, that kind of, I guess I probably learned from that you can function without a romantic relationship quite well.
Absolutely, I agree. I think for me, similar to both you, Georgina and Sade, my parents for sure were the example of just a healthy relationship. Parents that like genuinely cared about each other, and like I saw them be intimate, and not necessarily like intimate, but you know what I mean. But like just generally like this unwavering like compassion and like unwavering care for each other. In terms of normal relationships, I think that word kind of floated around in our conversations. What does a normal relationship look like?
Happiness. Like I don't know. For me, it's kind of happiness, loyalty, respect, holding hands in the sunset. That's true. You know, just like actually companionship. Like I think ultimately, like you need to be best friends with the person that you're with, and just kind of learning to live with each other's niggly bits. Like as long as the niggles aren't like too deep, if you know what I mean. But yeah, just companionship and just being happy and making each other laugh and just literally taking it back to the simple. You know, it doesn't have to be designer handbags, but I would like a few more if you're watching. But yeah, just stripping it back to literally
the simple things.
Yeah, the simple things.
Yeah. Would you agree, Yasmin?
Yeah. I mean, for me, taking the romantic elements out of it. Yeah. I mean, the same kind of qualities that you would expect in a kind of positive companionship, just taking the romantic parts out, really.
Sade?
I don't know. For me, I don't know whether it's because, again, I'm getting older and I'm kind of stripping everything back. But I was talking to someone recently about like love and blah blah blah, and we were talking about like the differences and like what we would perceive as love. And for me, I was really kind of adamant that love is a choice. It's almost like a verb, I think, as opposed to a noun.
Yeah.
So I'm very much like, for like, if I do find love, like love for me is like choosing to love, like, what, I don't know if it's your family or whatever, whoever, it's choosing to love whoever it is unconditionally, regardless of whatever comes. Kind of. I said unconditionally, but I mean kind of. But it's like a conscious choice. Like you choose every morning or every night to the next day to continue to love that person. I think all the other stuff then kind of comes in and feeds around it. So I don't know, like the holding hands and the intimacy and the soft bits. I think it all kind of wraps itself. It's almost like a little onion. I think in the middle of the onion is a choice, and then around it is all kind of like the beautiful parts. I think, I don't know, I think before I used to think like love is a feeling, but I don't know, feelings are fleeting, and I don't believe love should be fleeting. Like even like love in general, like the way you love your family, the way you love your friends, it shouldn't be something that you just like in the morning, like one morning it's like it's gone. So therefore, I don't know, I think for me it's an action more than anything.
What do you guys think? Love's
I
a
love
choice? Yeah.
I mean, as someone who's very romantic, romantic love is straight over my head. So I'm like, I observe everyone else in kind of like a objective way. I like analyze other people's interpretations of love, and I'm like watching everyone's relationships like a case study. Just like I'm like asking people questions and like taking notes and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so like the way you describe it, or like I have a friend who's just like a very love enthused person. Like she had this like long lasting love with someone who she hadn't spoke to for like ages. Like when she was younger.
Pick me. Had a long love with someone that she hadn't spoken to.
Yeah.
So how did the relationship begin?
She saw him. They lived in the same neighborhood.
Right.
And so she was just like in love with him for like years. And then they dated and didn't work out. But she was like, she was like it's like I hadn't even spoken to the guy. She's like in love. Like that was like her first proper like love for like years before they actually dated. And I was like, I can't even imagine how that would work. Like that, my brain, like my brain doesn't work
the
like
boy next door.
Yeah. My brain doesn't work like that. You know, you've been young spoken to. I could be a total asshole for you, you know, but you love him like hopelessly. Like that makes no sense to me. But then there's some people like you know, it's kind of have like a more like kind of like a logical perspective on it, and other people it's just like you could be a serial killer but I love you because it's unconditional. And it's like it's very interesting to like hear different people's things, because I think that it is a feeling, but it's socialized, it's learned. Like our societies, the way we interpret romantic relationships is not how they were interpreting it hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago, you didn't need to be in love to get married. That was a deal. It was a business arrangement, and the love didn't come into it. Especially when you're not even expected to live that long. Like it's really not that deep whether you fall in love if you're going to die in the winter. So it's something that I also think is quite a learned thing. So it's quite an interesting thing for me to observe. So I can never really give a straight answer with it because I don't feel it, but I can just like observe other people's takes on it. Yeah,
that's really interesting. I think in terms of love being learned, I think that's really poignant. So thank you for sharing that. I agree that it's a choice, because for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, Sade, feelings are absolutely fleeting. And I think just love holistically, not just in romantic settings, but just in kind of family settings, is also a choice, because my mom gets on my nerves sometimes. Do you know what I mean? And like in a lot of ways, if that was maybe a different relationship, you might think, oh, I don't love you anymore. But you just don't think that when it's someone that you genuinely love from a really, really deep place. Like, Georgina, I can imagine your kids get on your nerves sometimes, but you don't fall out of love with them. Like, it's just, they were annoying. And that's it. And literally that's it. Your next semi-milestone is maybe 25?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
30?
I was 30 in August.
Okay, and you're going to be 30.
Yeah.
In terms of preconceived ideas to getting to that point, what do they look like? I guess for Sade, what do they look like in terms of what happens when you get to 30? Georgina, what did it look like when you were getting to 30, and then what did it look like when you arrived? And Yasmin, in terms of turning 25, if there's this is going to happen at 25, what are you, like, what's the gap in between?
I think when I was younger, when I was like 19, I was like, okay, by 25, I would have met the love of my life. By 27, I'd be married. Like, we would have bought our first house, like, first baby on the way. And obviously, like, I'm now like 29 and I'm very single. And I'm not like, I'm still in my mummy and daddy's house. And it just feels like, I think before I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm a failure. I've not like hit these milestones like you're supposed to hit. And then I kind of just looked around and I was just like, it doesn't seem like anyone else is hitting these milestones either. It's just ages, like, not to be like cheesy, but ages is nothing. It's just a number. It's not like a death sentence or a jail sentence. Like, I'm not gonna turn 30 and be unwed and childless and then kind of like disappear into a puff of smoke or die. So I think now I kind of don't really have any expectations. I'm like, if I do find someone and do all of that like traditional stuff, great. Like I feel like as far as what I wanted in my career, I feel like I've done that and excelled. So I'm very like I'm usually quite career driven anyway. So I'm just like, if it's to do with like career milestones, I've hit those. But I guess like the more traditional milestones of kind of like having settled down and like been with like a husband and had kids and whatever, I'm just like, I thought I would be a lot sadder than I am, but I'm actually okay with it. I'm kind of like, I'm very comfortable in the idea of like, I actually really, I'm more fearful almost of like going into a relationship because I'm like, dang, I really want it to be a good thing. I'm too old to cry over like sad relationships. So yeah, all of the kind of preconceived things I should have done before 30, the stuff that I haven't gotten around to yet. So it's actually okay. I don't feel anything. But then like 25-year-old me was like distraught. Like I was like panicking. I was just like, oh my God, everyone's like settling down, but I'm not. But yeah, now that I don't know if it's because I'm so close to 30 where I'm just like, yeah.
I think before 30, probably the same. I wanted to have kids and, you know, be settled down, which I've got, but I don't think I've really ever put that much pressure with ages. Like I wanted to do this by this age. I think now I'm like, the next step is we need to buy a house, which we're hoping to do next year. So I guess that's kind of like quite a milestone kind of thing for me. But I think actually turning 30 was actually, for me, I never actually realised that turning 30 was kind of like a big deal. Like, I guess I'm always like, oh yeah, like celebrating other people's birthdays and I'm not fussed about my own. But even friends that are the same, don't care about their own, were like, oh, what are you doing for your 30th? And I was like, oh, I didn't realise I had to
do something.
I would have been happy to just be at the park with the kids and have a birthday cake. Mm-hmm. But I had the best party anyway. That festival party in my garden was so sick. So sick, Chloe was there. So we actually helped set it up, so yeah. It was really good, which Rio set up, sickest party, which I was so glad that I had, because I was like, oh, for once, it's all about me, which like sounds a bit weird, but it's never about me, it's always about everyone else. And then the next day, you know, quite a few people were like, oh, do you feel different now? And originally I was like, no, I was 30 yesterday, I don't feel any different. But when I actually really thought about it, I don't know if it's because of Corona as well and kind of like just the restrictions and stuff, but it felt like, you know, like when it's like New Year's Eve and you kind of set New Year's resolutions, and I was like, yeah, it feels like I'm going into like a new decade, but it's like, this is a fresh start kind of thing. And I think I was like, look, I'm happy with the person I am. Like, I think I'm quite a nice person. Like, my actual core values, I'm really happy with that, and it's natural to me, like good energy, all that kind of stuff. I don't have to force it now, because not that I have to force it at some stage, but you know, that is me. So I kind of felt like all of a sudden, like, I know who I am, and I guess now it's just kind of, the house and all that stuff that needs to come, but it's just about bettering that version of me, I guess. Like, I've worked hard throughout the 20s, like whether it's looking after the kids, working, blah, 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 but now it's like, I actually want to start living life. So that's where I'm at now.
And you're saying that transition took place, like, as you transitioned to 30? Yeah,
I didn't kind of think it was going to happen, and it's only when people kept saying like, oh, you must feel different now, and then when I actually sat down and took the time to just have some time on my own and kind of reflect, I guess, at all the stuff that happened in the last like 10 years, my whole life, that kind of thing, where I was now, then I think then is when I was like, oh, actually, this has naturally happened and this is what's naturally going to happen because I'm in control of that now.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, for me, I feel like the kind of the milestones for like our generation are kind of different to like our parents. So like when my mom was like 17, she was like engaged and had like moved out, and she had like her own house and like a normal job and all that kind of stuff. And then she like was having me at like 27. And then nowadays, I think a lot of people my age, we know we're probably not going to be buying houses, and lots of people start having kids like in their 30s, and then you're probably going to be in like uni debt until you're like 40. So it's kind of like a different game compared to how it was before. So I've always kind of like kept that in mind and thinking about like the milestones. I'd always like, I don't have any siblings, so I don't have to compare myself to anybody in that sense. But I'd always like compare myself to my mom and be like, we were at like completely different stages by the time she was like my age. But I know, I mean, I was kind of weird because as a kid, I felt like I had like a kind of midlife crisis when I was like 15. I felt like if I was going to be good at something, I should have been good at it by then. And I was like, I don't know, I'd see people like, I'd be watching TV and be watching like Disney Channel and be thinking, they're 15, they've got a freaking TV show. I'm doing like GCSEs like a loser. I'm not doing anything impressive. I have no discernible skills. And so that's what I was kind of like, that's when I kind of started thinking like, should I start doing like, I started doing like workshops and started doing like modeling and like thinking about like, what am I going to be good at? Because I've exhausted like loads of hobbies by now. And I feel like if I'm going to be good at something, I should be good at it by the time I'm like 16. So, which is now in hindsight, I'm like, that's kind of like a weird like thing to put on yourself at 15. But like that, I just had like that kind of anxiety that I wasn't really good at anything by then. And I hadn't really thought far ahead in terms of like, when I was a teenager, I was just thinking I need to get through my teenage years in one piece. So I didn't really picture being like 25. I can remember when being 13 seemed weirdly old. So now when I'm like, okay, 24, like I didn't even picture what being 24 would be like. And 25, I'm just kind of like, is it weird that I'm still in my childhood bedroom? Maybe, I don't know. Is anyone doing anything different? Sometimes I see people who like are like engaged or like they have a house and kids and dogs by the time they're like my age. I'm like, okay, it's a bit weird, but I don't know. I feel like it's kind of good to just kind of just go with the flow, really. Because if someone had asked me what I thought I'd be doing at 24 when I was 20 and I was in uni, I think I was doing my bachelor's, I probably would have imagined I'd be working for like, I don't know, the police or something, because that's or like social, doing something with my actual degrees or something. I didn't think I'd be doing any of this kind of stuff. So I feel like it's kind of good just to not really predict. And also, if someone asked me this year what I thought I'd be doing in 2020, I had a lot of plans.
Yeah, we all had a lot of plans.
I feel like milestones, they don't really, I feel like our culture is so weird right now. And I feel like our standards are shifting all the time, and our economy's kind of made it so you can't do the kind of traditional stuff so easily. So I think it's just easy just to kind of go with it. I can't even picture 30 at all. I can kind of picture 25. I can't picture 30. That feels like
that feels like a
further away.
So far.
Yeah.
That's so funny. When at 25, picturing 30, similar to you, I couldn't see beyond 25 because I felt like 25 was a really pivotal age, supposed to have kids, be married. At 16, I thought, cool, in 10 years, 100%.
Yeah.
Like marriage, kids, house. Like it's so easy to have a house at 26.
Oh my God. I literally was like I didn't know what the process was until
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago, because we have a mortgage broker at work, which I didn't realize we had. I was like, what do I need to do? And she like laid it out to me. I was like, I have no idea what any of this means. I'm not an adult enough yet. I don't know what credit scores are properly. Yeah, all of this adulthood stuff. Even like 30 felt like I don't know why, it felt like such an old age.
Yeah.
I don't know why. When you're a kid, you're just like 30 is like the pinnacle of adulthood. But now my mind has changed, and I'm just like, no, my life. I feel like my life is actually going to begin at 30 because I feel like I'm so much more. I'm so comfortable now in myself that I'm like, oh, if I'm comfortable now, my 30 is going to be really good because I'll just be able to live life doing myself really.
I mean, I feel like 20s, I mean, I guess probably not for you because you were like kids and stuff, but I feel like 20s just seems like a prolonged childhood now.
It does. I feel like it's the free trial run.
Like,
Yeah,
I think like before, like when I was a teenager, I thought like 20, like that's like an adult. But nowadays it's like 20, you probably just finished your like A levels and you're just started uni and you're still living at home. You're probably still going to be living at home. And then you're just trying to getting on the job ladder by the time you're like 23, 24. And you're probably not going to be settled down by the time you're like 26, like your parents were. So I feel like everyone's just kind of been like this weird, I feel like I'm in a prolonged childhood. I'm still trying to, I'm only officially like becoming a self-employed person this year that actually has like a job. So it's like I'm not even at the stage of paying bills or anything.
Like all of those like stereotypical adult responsibilities. Yeah, it's a crazy transition, but I had a similar feeling to you, Georgina, when I turned 30. I turned 30 last month and felt like I expected, maybe 29, I expected to turn 30 and feel like this whirlwind of like, you almost like be like, tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be. And then you just turn up as a different person. But it just doesn't happen. Like it really doesn't happen. And like the feeling of just waking up and thinking, okay, it's another day. But I agree in that it really does feel like it's a fresh start. That is the one thing I can say that did feel different. It almost felt like the page was so blank. Yeah, it really felt blank, more so than any other age. I very much look at my years like the year I was born rather than the calendar year. I very much see that more as a new year for me than I do the 1st of Jan. But when I turned 30, it genuinely felt like a blank page. And that was really exciting. I expected that feeling to be very daunting. And even some other friends that I knew that were turning 30 as well were like, oh my God, did you not feel anxious a week before? And I said, well, everything I wanted to do, I can't accumulate in a week. So the fact of the matter is, like, we are where we are. And I think in a lot of ways, like what you were saying, Yasmin, we are in a different time now. I remember my mum had her own place at 21. That was her own place, like bought. I was like, wow. Meanwhile, literally like 10 years later, still in the same place. But I think we are living in different times and we just have different priorities. For us, I think just generally, I think millennial priorities are just purpose. I think parental priorities 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago were sustainability. So like roof over your head, food in the fridge, and a job to go to that you can just do. Not be happy, just do. And I think those types of things for us are just not satisfactory anymore.
No.
It's like, no, I don't like that. So
We jump from job to job.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. And I think although in a professional sense, it can look messy, I think when you really unpack it, it actually looks like this is someone who's like searching for something bigger than themselves. And as a result of that, it feels like gone are the days of just doing like the monotonous way that things have always been
But
done.
then don't you think there's still quite a lot of pressure to, even though it's kind of like in our heads, you don't kind of feel like you, but then you do kind of get to the point, it's like, oh, I want a house now, kind of. There is still that pressure. And I think even like social media and stuff, you see like, as soon as one of your friends buys a house, it's like, oh, like, I want to buy that house. It's kind of like you've just like started to learn the mortgage like kind of
and
process,
they're like, I want it now.
which you should teach at school. It's like, come on, teach us real life, like even self like tax returns, like teach it at school. But yeah, there is I think even in our heads it's kind of like, oh, let's just go with flow, and you know, like there is still the pressure that you want to do it and it just seems so unachievable, which can either really push you to think, no, I'm going to do it, like I need to do it, so I'm going to have to work 24 hours and burn out once a month because I need to get to that goal. Like, yeah, I think it's really difficult for young people, I think.
Yeah,
Us, like,
finding the balance in between, I think is exactly what you're saying. Like the pressure of being able to do these things, but also allowing yourself to just like move as your life is moving. Which side do you think you lean more to in that? Like, are you kind of leaning more to just let my life flow as it is, or like, no, I still really want to?
I've always been kind of like a let it flow and what happens, happens. And then I think you kind of get put into certain situations, like personal situations or whatever, kind of that make you think, it kind of makes you check yourself like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so free flowing. And now it's kind of like, I need to hurry up and become the 30-year-old adult that I actually am, if that makes any sense. I think like, yeah, I kind of get outside influences and, as I say, like personal things that'll be like, why have you been so free flowing and not been I don't know what the right word is. Kind of mature enough maybe, like, or being responsible and actually like set these old school kind of tools for yourself from them. So I'm kind of like, I'm more free flowing, but I'm starting to kind of come onto the, okay, I need to be a bit more logical and get things done.
Yeah, so like structure with space.
Yeah, that's it, with a moat. It's like a
Yeah.
castle with a moat around it.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm into it. Yeah, I definitely think so. And just generally, how, in terms of your like moral core values, what are you most proud of about yourself at this age?
I would say for myself, I think whenever people are like, what is like a word you use to describe yourself, I always say resilient, because I feel like as I've like throughout the course of my life, I've had like life has been like good, touch wood, but I've had loads of kind of curveballs thrown my way, and I've had like some thrown my way this year. But I feel like, I don't know whether it's kind of like disassociating, but I kind of just like, I'm very much like a shrug shoulder, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'll deal with it. Even if it's like something really serious, I'm like, it's fine. It'll be fine. And I'm always just like, I have like a mindset of, I can't come and kill myself, basically. A very kind of like African auntie mindset. I'm just like, it'll be fine in the end. And I think I've done that with a lot of stuff, and I guess it served me well, because like each time it helps me, like, because I've not kind of internalized too much, I've been able to kind of pick myself back up regardless of how big or small whatever the thing that threw me off course was. So I'm able to kind of just throw myself back on course and just kind of plow forwards.
Yeah, resilient.
I don't know, there's so many words. Maybe consistent. Kind of just within friendships, relationships with my kids. I don't know, I'm just like a consistent, even with my job, like I'm a consistent kind of like support, go-to kind of safe space, which I guess, yeah, I always want to be kind of that consistent, kind of never letting myself or other people down. I don't know, I feel like it's quite difficult to kind of like, not big yourself up, but you know, like sometimes it's like, I don't know, like I could tell you anything about any other person, but I find it quite difficult to try and find like a word to actually say like, yeah, this is my strongest point. Quite loyal, that's a good thing. But yeah, I don't know, I need to think probably a bit more about it.
Consistent and loyal are good words. Consistent and loyal, very good words.
I know, I think I've always been pretty like unconventional, and I've kind of managed to make that work in my favor, without actually having to change who I am. I think for most of like my entire time in education, I was always like the total school loser. Like everyone thought I was like really weird. And now all the things that people thought I was weird for are the things that people are not paying me to talk about. So I think that I've kind of managed to like kind of stick to my guns and just wait it out. And now I feel like I'm managing to do something positive with all the things that would traditionally be seen as like flaws or like weird character traits. And I think I've only really been doing this stuff for about like 2 years, and I think I've done a pretty good job at kind of, I guess you're gonna have to toot my own horn a little bit, but based on what other people have said to me, I've kind of become, I'm like one of the most well-known asexual people like in the world. I Googled the word asexual people a few days ago and was kind of surprised when I was like one of the first people that came up, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is where we're at now. So and now I have like all these people that like look to me and like cite me and kind of see me as being like a pioneering activist in that area, and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool that I pulled that off. I tend to kind of aim for things that like people that it doesn't even seem like an option of something to aim for. And people said, what are you going to do when you finish uni? I didn't say this. It didn't even, no one's done that before. It's not even an option of something to do. So I think I give myself props for managing to do something that hasn't really been done before and pull it off while still being a total weirdo when people are actually kind of into it. So yeah, I think that is, especially as kind of what we're saying about like the pressures, even though I am kind of like just going with the flow of things, when I see like people who I left school with and stuff, and they'll be like doing normal stuff, and they'll have like putting things in like a pension fund, and they'll like have like this steady thing, and then people go, what do you do? And I'm like, lots of stuff. And it doesn't really sound like, it doesn't really make as much sense. It's not as consistent or it's like reliable. So I definitely still feel that kind of like pressure where I'm like, how is this gonna go? No, there's no blueprint for what I'm doing. Like, so like I can be like, oh, I'm gonna get a promotion at this age and I'll be in this position. There's no position. It's just me winging it. But I think I've winged it quite well thus far.
You've winged it extremely well. You've winged it extremely well. And as we land, what would you say to somebody who is struggling to like fight the pressures? And that could be pressures with age, pressures with identity, anything. What would you say to that person that's struggling with that? How would you? I know that as a doula, you don't give advice. I know this is kind of off. It's a bit off, but just in general, even like a young sister, a good friend. How would you advise?
Be your authentic self. Like, don't kind of. It's easy to give in to pressures and to look at other people and think, oh, that looks good. Maybe I'll try and be like that. Just stick true to who you are, because people will love you. Look at your job. You're literally getting paid for yourself. Like, it's true. Like, you're kind of giving talks and pioneering yourself. So rather than, there was probably some say that you could have been like, oh, I don't feel that, but I'm just going to try and force it and try and get a boyfriend. Like, you didn't, you yourself. So I think just be who you are, and people naturally gravitate and help and love you for who you actually are.
Yeah, I'd say something similar. I would say also, like, really try and pinpoint where that pressure is coming from, whether it's external forces or internal. If it's external, then really look to build up your boundaries. That's something that I had to do, especially with like, I don't know, like nosy aunties, kind of being like, when are you marrying? And then the internal stuff I had to really work on. And one thing I always say to people, and I feel like I say it to everyone, I'm always like for me, therapy and working through like my own internal kind of like battles was really kind of like the thing that kind of helped me take off. So kind of looking back and seeing like, so for example, one of the things my therapist was like, she's like, you put a lot of pressure on yourself and it's self-inflicted. She's like, it's forget like all the other pressure from everyone else. She was like, this is you. For some reason, you're obsessive about like achieving all of these things, and because you're so obsessed about achieving all these things and being somewhere by a certain age, you're almost kind of putting yourself back, because then you kind of panic and you're like you can't do anything. So I would say like re-identify where it's coming from. If it's coming from you, do the work that you need to do to undo all of this kind of pressure you're putting on yourself, whether it's like from childhood or whether it's just from society, or whether it's like as simple as just turning off Instagram because you've seen all of your friends buying houses, all your friends are pregnant. Just take yourself out and really look after yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with both of those sentiments. I think you should, I mean, it sounds very Disney Channel, but that kind of like that be yourself. Just kind of like stick to your guns and be yourself. It's kind of easier said than done, but I think that, I know, I always try to remind myself that like, when you're like feeling like self-conscious or like anxious about like what other people think about like what you're doing or how you are, like no one cares. Like no one cares as much as you think they care, and no one cares about you as much as you do. So if you're ever feeling like worried about like whatever people, like how you're coming across or like how people perceiving something, they're only going to perceive it for like 5 minutes and then they're going to go get their lunch and watch TV. People don't care that much. Like, I always feel one of those people that, like, I do something and I'd be like, oh, that was, like, super awkward and, like, now everyone's going to care about it. And now, like, my life is over. And it's like, they forgot about it 5 minutes ago. You're the only one thinking about this stuff. So sometimes it's helpful just to kind of be like, even if it sounds, like, negative, like, no one cares that much. So you do need to kind of, like, look inwards and focus on, like, yourself and your own happiness, because most 99% of people don't care about you as much as you do. So you do need to make sure that you're your own cheerleader as much as possible, because like most people they're not that invested. They're invested in their own business more than yours. So make sure you're invested in yourself.
That's very true. I think, to just piggyback on everyone's sentiments, it is literally about being and showing up as your authentic self. I think understanding where the pressures come from. And I think for millennials, from my experience, I do think it's a lot more self-inflicted than it is external. And that comes from visibility of what's going on around you. So yeah, I would absolutely agree with those sentiments. And ultimately, you guys all independently are absolutely killing it in your respective areas.
Thank you.
It's always so inspirational to sit with trailblazing Black women from various spaces and just dialogue and reason and converse and all of that. Where can people follow you? How can people keep up with what you're doing independently? Plug yourselves. I know it's awkward, but...
Well, all my stuff is at the Yasmin Benoit, so YASMINBENOIT. If you type in my name on Google, then you tend to get like the little Instagram and those kind of symbols and stuff come up. So you can, and my Twitter and Instagram are verified, so those are definitely me. So yeah, you can. That's where I share a lot of my my activism, my modeling, and articles and all that kind of stuff. So that's where you can find me.
I'm not verified. I haven't got that many followers to add me. So my doula Instagram is together_doula. And if you want to look at my kids, because I don't stop talking about them, my mum Instagram is Peckham Mum, all one word.
I think I'm in my Sunday best for everything. And my blog as well is in my Sunday best. Yeah, for absolutely everything.
I love it. Well, make sure you guys follow TreasureTress at TreasureTress on everything. And thanks for flying with TT.